it was one of our most successful TV shows ever. So it was really interesting to go back to the very start and the point where it was just an idea with Rachel Lang and see how that evolved and see how it actually happened.
Talofa lava, I'm Madeline Chapman, editor of the Spinoff. Welcome to Behind the Story, where I go behind the scenes of a big article on the Spinoff from the week. If you want a weekly rundown of some of the best reads from the Spinoff every Saturday, make sure you sign up to the weekend newsletter. Today I'm talking to staff writer Tara Ward, who this morning published a cover story on the Spinoff, looking back at how Outrageous Fortune came to be 20 years after the first episode aired on New Zealand TVs. Tara spoke to the creators, writers, directors and stars of one of New Zealand's most beloved shows and tells the behind-the-scenes tale of its journey to our screens. If you've never seen Outrageous Fortune, I'd suggest reading Tara's feature and then pressing play on episode 1. And if you're a long-time fan, the Spinoff will have outrageous stories running all week to celebrate its 20-year anniversary. Here's Tara Ward on Behind the Story. Kia ora, Tara. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
This is a big week in New Zealand pop culture history. We have the 20th anniversary of the very first episode of Outrageous Fortune, which I think for many people would be deemed one of, if not the best New Zealand TV show that we've ever produced. You have a cover story out today, which basically speaks to a whole range of people, cast, crew, creators of Outrageous Fortune. Did you watch Outrageous Fortune when it first aired 20 years ago? Were you in front of the TV on that Thursday night?
I was in front of the TV, but I was living overseas in the UK in 2005. And when I came back the next year, all my friends seemed to be talking about this new show, Outrageous Fortune, but I had missed it completely. And it was really weird coming back home, and it felt like something major had happened and had gone on, and I'd missed it completely, and it wasn't on DVD. I couldn't catch up on it. So it sort of had this mysterious allure to it, and that it had resonated really strongly with people my age in their 20s, but I had no idea what it was until the second season came on in 2006.
That's kind of, even just that is a lovely time capsule of not being able to catch up on something if you didn't watch it the day it came out. Yeah, it was a very weird sensation. But when season 2 dropped, you instantly got what everyone was talking about. It was a show that hadn't been on New Zealand screens before. There was swearing, there was sex, and it was just so bold and in your face. And I think that's what made it stand out. And when you were thinking about writing about Outrageous Fortune 20 years on, there is a really easy way for people to either fall to the this show is, the greatest thing we've ever done, end of story, or sort of focusing in on like things that maybe didn't age so well, or kind of being quite harsh in hindsight and putting 2025 kind of expectations on 2005. You decided to essentially just go and talk to everyone in it and just tell the story outside of that. And how, when you were going into it, were you kind of like, I feel like I know the Outrageous Fortune story, or were you truly going and speaking to people like Rachel Lang, who was essentially the mastermind behind the show? Were you going in to learn the story yourself?
Yeah, I think I was, because from the perspective we're in now, you're looking back and knowing that it was one of our most successful TV shows ever. So it was really interesting to go back to the very start and the point where it was just an idea with Rachel Lang and see how that evolved and see how it actually happened, as opposed to kind of looking back and as you say, looking at it with 2025 eyes and kind of making a judgment on it, but to see what led to it and how we responded to it and why we responded to it so strongly at that time.
And there's a little bit in the cover story that talks about how, everyone thought it was a great idea. It got signed off pretty quickly. It got funded pretty quickly, which is great, and certainly not the case now that things just kind of, waltz on through. But it was not a smash, critical darling or smash popular hit right from the start. Can you talk a little bit about like the slow burn and how we sometimes choose to believe that everyone got on board straight away when you find out that it's good?
Yeah, I had assumed that it had been a hit from the very start because that was sort of my experience of it. But you look at those. There's an early review from Diana Wichtel, which she wrote a review that was quite scathing of it. And I talked to her for the cover story, and she said she had 6 seasons to repent because it just was so different to what we'd seen before that it took people by surprise. And I think it took people a while for the tone of the show to kind of be accepted. And then I think it was just a case of momentum getting behind it. And it wasn't until maybe the 2nd season when they did a Christmas special and definitely the 3rd season that it started to take hold. And season 3, that had 22 episodes, which is phenomenal. And so, it was on our screens for almost half a year, every Tuesday night for nearly half a year, the Wests were on. So I think, they were part of our lives every week. And kind of hard not to get on board that.
Did you rewatch it before you wrote this?
I rewatched it as I started to write it, so that I kind of had those voices and those people in my brain when I was working through the interviews, and found myself having to turn it off because I was just getting too caught up in it. So it was lovely having those two worlds side by side as I was writing it.
Do you feel like if they announced a show tomorrow, said there's going to be a new show about a crime family in New Zealand, it's going to be drama and comedy and quite, outrageous, do you feel like in the current sort of TV viewing but also just cultural climate that it would be able to take hold like it did?
I think there's just so much television now that it would be competing against so much other stuff. And I think one of the things about Outrageous Fortune was that it was this lightning in a bottle kind of moment where everything aligned, the cast and the crew and the people aligned. Broadcast television was still king. We watched a lot of it. I think if it was made today, it would still, it would resonate with people, but I don't know that it would take such a strong hold over the nation like that did at the time.
There is quite an interesting, you mentioned Brotown had come out in 2004, and there is just something quite funny to me to think of Brotown and Outrageous Fortune both being kind of staple viewings at the same time because they're so particular and quite out the gate that it kind of just makes me think the New Zealand sort of psyche or sensibility must have been so specific in that brief period that those were our two most popular shows on TV.
Yeah. And there was, it was a really rich time in New Zealand television. There was a lot of our voices on the screen, but perhaps not, perhaps quite not like Outrageous Fortune was. Yeah.
And the thing about Diana, who's an incredible reviewer and, revered and respected and has good opinions, her talking about sort of writing this quite negative review early on and then having to recover it over the seasons, it has come up a bit even just in the office chat about the habit of reviewing shows after watching maybe only one episode or two episodes, and whether or not that is helpful or unhelpful, both for people who are making stuff and for reviewers. Where do you stand on that now? It's kind of tricky now because so many shows you can kind of watch the entire thing in one day, the day it comes out. But yeah, I've certainly given negative reviews to shows that got off maybe to a not great start and then watched the rest of the season and gone, I guess I wouldn't have been as negative if I watched the whole season. But yeah, where do you fall on that, on reviewing in New Zealand and whether or not it's helpful to be reviewing shows early on for people who aren't sure whether to dip their toe in?
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because when a show comes out, people want to know about it. So you instinctively watch the show and tell them about it. But often those first episodes are just the start. And as the season goes through, the show becomes stronger and people sit into their characters a bit more and it becomes more comfortable, which is certainly what happened with Outrageous. And I'm sure Diana would say exactly the same. It's something we're mindful of, Alex and I, and that sometimes it's better to let the show run and watch it from the end and give it an overview. So it is a tricky balance. You know, there's that immediacy of responding to a show when it comes out, but also recognising that some shows need a bit of space to really hit their stride.
You spoke to lots of people involved in the show, including the kind of, the face of the show, you would say, Robin Malcolm. How is it talking to people about something that they did? Most actors would be, it's such a cycle. You go hard and talk about your one show for ages and then you never talk about it again. How was it kind of talking to these people about something creative they did 20 years ago, for better or worse? Were some of them a little bit like reluctant to look back on that, or was there a bit of an appreciation that it's been remembered at all so far?
Yeah, it's really lucky. Everyone was really generous and happy to talk about the show and their time on the show, and the people I spoke to look back on it really fondly as being quite a busy and challenging and incredible time. Lots of emotions about the show, but all really proud of that time in their lives, and seem quite appreciative that we are remembering it and paying tribute to it, and that the show still lives on. It's on TVNZ Plus, so there's kind of a new generation of people starting to watch it. And yeah, everyone was wonderful to talk to and really open and sharing their memories and looking back on that time in their lives. And
would you recommend, because it's available on streaming platforms now, which is lovely timing, would you recommend the show to New Zealanders? Absolutely. I was talking to a friend yesterday who said she'd put the show on and her partner was like, I don't know, it's, I don't remember that very well, but they got into it again, it caught their attention. So, there are things in there that maybe you wouldn't appear in a TV show today, but I think when I interviewed Diana Wichtel, she was talking about Outrageous had this confidence to it, and that meant that it could get away with stuff. And I think maybe that still stands today, that you can admire the confidence and go, okay, well, perhaps that scene or that line or that word wouldn't be used now, but can still appreciate it for what it is. And it is just so us in a way that no other show is at the moment, yeah. And before I let you go, I'm going to let you do a bit of a plug for what we were calling Outrageous Week on the Spinoff, which is a kind of mini-series of Outrageous Fortune pieces. Do you want to give a quick rundown of what readers can expect throughout the week? Yes, so we've got
an amazing platform of fantastic pieces. We look at, Emma Gleeson is looking at the outrageous fashion. Gav Shute is looking at the music. Alex Casey's looking at all the swear words and the way that language was used in Outrageous. And we're going to cover it in Rec Room as well. And Liam Ratana is covering the most important moments from across all 6 seasons of the show. So, it's a really lovely trip down memory lane.
Oh, and you can see all of those on the spinoff.co.nz or come in at the end of the week to get the full wrap up. Thank you so much, Tara Ward, for being on Behind the Story.
It's a pleasure.